because it's expected. You have to have all of this, even if it's not necessarily what the game is fundamentally about. And Quake Arena was always very pure. It is a tournament deathmatch-oriented game. And to be able to take that back, polish it up some, and put it into an environment where we can make it, you can't go out and charge 50 bucks for something like this. But if you make it completely free, it's still a hell of a lot of fun. And I hadn't played Quake 3 for a long time, probably a couple of years. And when we started the Quake Live stuff, we jumped back in. We had some sign-ups, an in-company tournament. And of course, not playing nearly as much. My skills were very rusty. Back in the original Quake Arena days, I won the in-house tournament. But of course, it was all downhill from there as people got much more serious about the gameplay there. And at this point, we still have some in-house people that are really, really good. And I was lucky to I made it out of the first round, I think, in there. But it was a lot of fun. It was going back and looking at the game. It looks a little better now than it used to. There's a level of polish that 9 years later in the game industry that's expected, no matter what the level of technology. And when you go back and look at games of that era, Quake Arena was getting by on a flash of, oh my gosh, it's hardware accelerated and it's really fast, isn't this cool? If you actually stopped and looked, you'd be like, well, those aren't lined up right, this has an inappropriate texture on the bottom of this, this area is too dark, all that sort of stuff that was completely fine back in the day. It's not like we were looking at something that was overshadowing it. But when we go back and look at it now, a level designer that's been working in the industry for the preceding 10 years goes and looks at that and says, well, this looks kind of alpha-ish, let's go in and do the final polish on everything. And without changing any of the core technology, everything just looks a lot nicer now. It's a lot more professional and polished, and we've integrated all of this in-game advertising, the billboards and scoreboards and things like that with the game, and it's turned out really pretty neat there. And I get asked a lot in interviews if we think in-game advertising or something might be the wave of the future for PC gaming. And I always answer no. I don't think that it's the wave of the future that's going to take off lots of games, because there's lots of games it's just not appropriate for. We have said that if Quake Live is very successful, the next thing that we might look at is Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, which was always a more popular online game with more players than Quake Arena was. A lot of people liked it, but it's hard to see how we do the same treatment with it. You're running around New York fighting the Nazis, and there's a billboard for Intel or something. It's just not going to work as well. But if you play Quake Live today and you go look at it, the billboards, the setup, it's really tastefully done. It feels right. The game was always about thrown into this arena for combat, and now the arena just has billboards, and it looks stylish and cool. And while we talk about maybe at some point having some kind of a pro mode that you can pay a few bucks extra to have something in there, we really don't know what we want to do with that. We wouldn't want to turn off advertising. I know that's a popular thing for ad-supported stuff where you have a free ad-supported mode, you pay something and the ads go away. But if you turn the ads off on Quake Live, it would just look a lot worse. The levels would seem empty, the website would seem much more dead, and it just wouldn't be a positive thing. So that's really not an option that we're even thinking about on the table. But there's probably something else that we can do that the people that are serious, that want to segregate themselves in some way from the teeming masses that we hope wind up inhabiting the game in a lot of ways. Some sort of extra thing we'll be thinking about, but we won't know what it's going to be until we've got 6 months or so under our belt and see what people like about it, what people would like to see done. And there are all sorts of, some sense of things that you just can't do with free accounts, where people will exploit it in different ways, and some things are easier with real registration and accountability that comes from having paid something for the game. But we don't know what's going to be coming there, and certainly the base of it's going to remain completely free as long as the game is running. And that's where the experimental part of this comes in, where we're hopeful that if this has a successful following, if there's enough people on it, that the sponsors and the advertising is covering the costs, it's the type of game that we can keep people on forever. We have, I think, 8 people internally and some contractors working on the project right now. The fallback plan, if all of this just fails miserably, is we've taken a set of people through an entire project development cycle, which is pretty rare right now, to have somebody go through, here's the idea for the project, let's get it started, let's build it up, develop it, deploy it. It test it, debug it, get the feedback, and see that entire cycle, which in the good old days we would do once a year, or even quicker than that in the early games, and that was always really valuable, like we're doing with the mobile space now. So to be able to do that with a high-end PC-focused game on here will be valuable. Even if the project winds up not being a huge success, we'll be able to take those people, put them on Doom, or help finish up Rage, or whatever. And it won't be money wasted. But fingers crossed, I still think that there's a lot of potential for this. I think that what we're doing with making the game approachable, and for the people that haven't seen it, it really is pretty nice. We're still polishing the process, but you go to, in the wider world, quakelive.com, you just click through, and download some stuff, starts downloading things in the background, like you can play a warm-up match. We gauge your skill level a little bit, and then the matchmaking is all about trying to set people up for a game that they're going to have fun at. Something where you don't get thrown to the wolves. Because if you imagine somebody giving a random person a box copy of Quake Arena, the 9-year-old, get it off your shelf, give it to them, and tell them to install it and go play online. They'd have a miserable time. They'd have to go in, find the latest patch versions, go someplace, find out that it's running some bot that they have to go and figure out where to get. And it's just not, it's not a friendly experience. What we've got here really is about clicking through a bunch of things, getting into the game, being tutored a little bit, learning how to play the basic game, and if you are completely inept walking off of edges, you'll be put in a game with other completely inept people, and you should still have a good time. And I think that there's a lot of people that this is the hardcore gaming community that will spend $50 for a modern game, and will play in hyper-competitive mode and all this. It's easy to forget that you're in an insular community, and that's not the wider world of all people that play games, or all people that are interested in playing games. And I do hope that this is, I'm leaning much more towards the 5+ million people that I hope will be able to get in and enjoy this, because it's going to be so easy. If you enjoy the game, there's going to be features to like send mails out to your friends with links and stuff, but basically just go to Quake Live, see if you enjoy this. And it's never going to be the most mass market game. It's not going to be something like The Sims. One thing that people need to kind of realize about modern games is that it's easy to kind of be misled by the wording, where games are really about entertainment. We're entertaining the people that are paying the money. Games often have a connotation of challenge or competition, but that's really not what most of the big games are so much about. It's not about trying to challenge the player in some way. It's trying to get them to have fun as they're going through it, which challenge can be one element. And we've all seen games where the designer really does think it's like us against the game players and make it as challenging and ridiculously tough as possible. But those are really falling by the wayside, and the modern games with the big budgets are about coddling the player in many ways to make sure that they have a great time. And that's the point. They're paying their money to be entertained. So a game like Quake Arena is not about coddling the player very much. It is about throwing them into a very high-tension, adrenaline-filled environment where it is frag or be fragged, and you don't expect it to. There's not a lot of that pacing that goes on in a lot of modern games. So I don't think that it's going to be that you're going to have 10 million people that all enjoy GTA or something will wind up playing Quake Live. But there's a lot of people that will wind up enjoying it when they're matched with people of similar skill levels. And one of the other significant things that we decided this year is when I talked last year, I believe I was talking about this move from, we prove things out on Quake Live, and then we roll into another Intech 5-based Quake Arena project. And that's not currently scheduled. We did decide to move internally with Doom instead of Quake. Initially the thought was Quake would be a smaller team project, and grow the Quake Live team into that. But we did decide for a lot of reasons that we wanted to just push hard for doing Doom internally, moving more people onto that project. And the door is not completely shut for another Quake project, and I would say that probably the success of Quake Live will determine whether there's going to be another Quake Arena project. If we do go out and get many, many millions of people playing regularly on Quake Live, then publishers are going to be able to really look at this and say, okay, obviously there are a lot of people that care about this, that would like to see this and do, maybe go ahead and do a great game. It would have to be a 60 hertz high, fast action game rather than Although, of course, the fact that we can look like Rage at 60 hertz now is a positive sign for this generation. But right now, the publishers aren't all that interested in a single player and a multiplayer focused game on there. And looking at the reception of a lot of other products on there, they're probably right. You can do a successful project, but to do a big budget, modern cross-platform game, you're looking at budgets in the $20, $30 million range. Big budgets to be something that's going to be a blockbuster. So Quake for this coming year is Quake Live. And I think it's going to have a lot of great things for the community. When we look at